Welcome back to the Lanterne Rouge Cycling Podcast for the preview of maybe the biggest super team in cycling, FDJ Suez, the team that just acquired Demi Vollering after they'd already signed all their riders to form a very strong team in 2025. We're going to go through their 2024 season. It's a huge changes in the team though, so a lot of their winners are out and they got new ones coming back in. And we'll be going through, who will be the support for Demi Vollering? What does this mean for her? And more in the preview of them. But what was their 2024 season like, Benji?
If we look solely at the stats, we've got 13 victories, 4 Women's World Tour victories, and 1 Grand Tour victory in a Vuelta stage with Evita Music. And if I compare that to the 2023 season beforehand, it's less, but in a different way. As in, it went from 19 victories to 13, but if I look at the victories they have in 2024, they're at bigger races. If I look at their Women's World Tour victories, their victories this year are more important races. And of course, they went from 0 Grand Tour victories to 1 Grand Tour victory. So it's a weird thing. Value-wise, in terms of pure numbers, it went down, but I'd argue the quality of their wins went up. And one of the main wins of the season, and a lot of the main wins that are formed within this team, Grace Brown was a very valuable rider this year for this team. And it's not just in the trade team races. We know about Olympics ITT Grace Brown winner. We know about World Champion ITT Grace Brown winner. But then she also won Liège-Bastogne-Liège. And is it me, or was Liège-Bastogne-Liège actually a really good race? With the group with Kim Katzo and so forth, and Grace Brown and the whole situation with SD Works. And I don't know. That race has a fond memory in my head.
That was a really good final. Maybe 7 different riders could win.
Yeah.
Even in the last 5 minutes, and would it even be a sprint? There was attacks. That was a really, really good race, and Brown got it right, even though she got held up in that corner with that crash. So, yeah, Brown was clearly their best rider, winning, and I guess you have to also give them some props for her time trial victories too, because I guess they're the ones setting her up, or in conjunction maybe with the Australian Federation. So she was, their best rider, which was their favorite. I guess Music beating Vollering uphill in the Vuelta, that's kind of a big deal as well. Like a young rider. That was her first, I think, World Tour victory. She won a stage of the Giro 4 years ago.
Yeah. It's a while ago, though. So I think it matters a lot for her and for the team to see. And when it comes to Evita, it's not just that victory. She was literally competitive, in my personal opinion, not necessarily being able to beat Vollering all out in GC, that race, but she literally beat Vollering head-to-head on that climb. Yes, that includes Vollering taking more of the pulls at the front because her teammates weren't exactly helping Vollering too much. But at the end of the day, not many other cyclists this year can say that they beat Vollering head-to-head on top of a mountain. And that is something that Evita Music can definitely say, and it's not just that result. She also got 4th at Flash, 2nd at Emilia. And when it comes to stage races, super consistent. Getting 2nd at Vuelta Burgos, 10th at Tour de Suisse, maybe not the best results. Then she got 5th in that same GC of the Vuelta. And eventually also 4th in arguably the most important race of the season, Tour de France Femme. So that's a fantastic result for her. Also first French rider, so that's very valuable too. But I do want to talk about that Vuelta then, because she is next to Vollering, the best climber in that race. But where did it go wrong? Because she ends up 15 GC, which that's not 2nd. So where does she lose the time if it's not on the climbs?
Crosswind. She got split in the crosswind stage when Marcus, I think the Visma team, put it in the gutter, because there's like the classics climbers, or like the bigger climbers, like say Longo Borghini and Marcus, and then there's the lightweight climbers like Riolini and Music. She's not like Riolini level of like struggle on punchy hills or descents, but definitely maybe not a crosswind specialist. So that's something she might need to improve, or she wants to be a GC threat in the Tour next year. The first 5 stages are pretty tricky from memory. So that's maybe her current weakness, as well as a flat TT, I would guess.
I would argue as well. And that is why I would also say, yes, Brown was very valuable for this team, but I would also actually put Evita almost next to that, if not next to that, with the season she had for the team. And then there's a few other riders throughout the season that also had really solid performances. Amber Kraak in Paris-Roubaix really comes to mind. She was part of that group. She wasn't like, she didn't look like she was going to still beat the likes of Vos and Kopecky in the final, but she was there. And the fact that you can be in that final of Roubaix with those riders, the group of 5-ish that was left over at the end of that race, getting 5th at Roubaix is a really good result. So props to her for that. I think she also got a stage at, was it UAE Tour maybe?
She attacked late. She attacked late and held off. It was like a 5K solo.
Ooh. And also, like, it was one of those solos where she was just caught, like, literally on the line by the sprinters, which
it was so good.
Those are legendary in my head. And when it comes to Cecilie Uttrup-Ludwig, we haven't spoken about her too much. I remember her being pretty good at the start of the season. Tour Down Under, maybe I saw her a few times.
Yep.
Did she win a stage?
Yep.
Second stage, yes, and 19 GC. But also, by the way, is it me, or did I completely forget that the Cat 11's Great Ocean Road Race for women is called the Deacon's University Elite Women's Road Race? I had completely forgotten that it had a different name. Completely.
What's the acronym for that? Because if Cat 11's Great Ocean Road Race, it's KEGOR. What is it for?
This is UWRR. I don't know how to say that, man.
Jur. Yes, so Dur.
But like,
oh yeah, Ludwig was third there. I think that wasn't in a sprint though. I think Reinhardt, ain't no way she beat them in a sprint. So it must
not
kind
on
of
Chalambra. I think maybe on Chalambra or maybe on a hill afterwards. We saw a move by maybe Ludwig first, and then Reinhardt and Vlodarczyk. Was it Vlodarczyk? That was second?
Vlodarczyk.
They bridged up or something and then dropped Ludwig. It's completely in my head, so could be completely wrong about the scenario, but those are the main results of this team this season. And part of that is that Uttrup Ludwig had her sit bone, I think, fractured throughout the classic season, which that impacts her season. But regardless of that, I think quality-wise in terms of victories, it's not a bad season for this team.
No, I think if you win a monument and you're not on SD Works, what are the other like major classics? Tour of Flanders, Roubaix, Binder, and
it's difficult, because Binder you would argue because of the history, but the start list was weaker this year.
Was it?
Flesh, for example, people say in terms of history, in the men's you would never call that one of the top classics, but in women's cycling, I'd argue it kind of deserves that.
Amstel,
it's difficult.
Pretty big, especially because every single rider in women's cycling is Dutch.
That's actually true.
It's a big win to win Liège with Grace Brown. It's a huge win. They're just missing a tour win. I think so. That's the one that Viva celebrated too early.
Yeah.
I would say in the Tour de France, again, like, they got to be pretty happy with it. 4th with Muzic, winning the best French rider classification, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
So they got to be pretty happy with that. And maybe I guess that's also the best result she could have got. Like, I think.
I think so as well.
She raced a lot.
The one thing I am missing here is consistent sprint victories or close results when it comes to sprints, because every now and then one of their riders gets relatively close in a sprint, but they don't really have a sprinter. Ever since Clara Copponi left the team, it's not like they have a sprinter of that level, but I feel like that's something they've worked on in the transfer season. So we'll get into that in a second, but anything else to say about the 2024 season of this team?
I guess the one shame, and it's no one's fault, is they couldn't get, or Marta Cavalli just couldn't come back. A bit of a strange season. Like, she clearly has the good physical level, or at least like good enough. She was 9th in flesh. You don't do that off the couch. But she only raced 5 days. She did 2 days of the Vuelta and then didn't start stage 3. I don't know if she crashed on stage 2. There were some crashes in the early sprint stages. So she's leaving the team. She's on a 3-year deal to DSM. But yeah, that's just a shame because she won in 2022, huge breakout, and yeah, it looks set to be the sort of, like, frankly, like better than Niviadoma level. Honestly,
Yeah,
she looked better than that level of rider. She was winning, and it wasn't to be.
It's also that there's so many things that have followed each other up when it comes to Marta Cavalli. From the fact that Nicole Frain rode into her back in that Tour de France in 2022, causing that injury that kept coming on, and then the year after was concussion issues as a consequence of that. And I think this year she might have been, a driver might have hit her during training, I think, which also led to the fact that there's only 5 race days on her schedule. I think in February somewhere, maybe, but I don't know the exact scenario anymore and the period and how long that has had consequences on her this year. But I hope that next year, because she has an opportunity at DSM Firmenich now next year, that she might be able to, first of all, not have a year, or at least have a year without any of those setbacks again, because that alone will do a lot of things. So hopefully that's something, but it won't be at FDJ Suez next year.
Yeah, hopefully DSM can get her back on track, or back where she needs to be. But yeah, that crash, I'm just going through, Nicole Frain, that decision that she made, one decision she made that Cavalli couldn't control has basically set back Cavalli's career by a number of years at best. So yeah. Moving on to the transfers. Outgoing, we've already mentioned Brown, or Cavalli off the DSM. Grace Brown retires. I think she's going to be the head of the Women's Riders Union.
Yes.
Or this is what I saw on Twitter yesterday. She retires, and Gladys Verhulst-Wild goes to AG Insurance, and Cecilie Uttrup Ludwig, one of the most well-known riders in the peloton and of this team, and she won indeed, I think, their first Tour de France stage, goes to Canyon Shram Zonda Crypto. She
sorry about that name.
Cassia
Zonda
Diamond
Crypto
Hands.
part gets me.
Cassia Diamond Hands. So yes, Ludwig leading Benji, like, she's a good rider, but I think it's probably time for a change as well for her and them. Like, I feel like she's stagnated a little bit with the team as well.
I would agree. As in, when it comes to GC, there's also too many cooks coming into the kitchen. As in, we haven't spoken about the incoming transfers yet, but for the context of this exit, I do need to. Vollering and Labou both coming to this team. Those are riders that, on paper, are definitely better GC riders than Ludwig, especially Demi Vollering. And if you combine that with Evita Music, who had a great season, then you'd have 4 cooks in the kitchen. And I'm sorry, but you can have 1 or 2 sous chefs below the chef, because Demi Vollering will be the chef. But when it comes to Uttrup Ludwig, a 4th one, then it becomes really difficult to share the responsibilities and share the races amongst each other and share the opportunities, because riders of that level will want to ride for themselves. Uttrup Ludwig has won a stage at the Tour de France, has also got the top 5 at the Tour de France from 2 years ago? Or am I getting that wrong?
I'm not sure.
You're my accountability.
When did the race first kick back off again? She was 7th in the Tour in 22.
Okay.
And 7th last year.
Okay. Close enough to 5th, right?
Yeah.
That's also a take I have on it. Like, you can only have X amount of leaders within the team. So I think it's a good thing for the team that she's leaving. And I think it's a good thing for Uttrup Ludwig that she gets to work in a new environment. And on top of that, personally, I love her as a cyclist, but when it comes to in-team tactics, I feel like she sometimes looked like she wasn't the one necessarily being the most teamworky of the bunch, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's definitely the case. I think sometimes chasing, or there's some strange things in classics. So yeah, it's when you have Vollering as a big leader, it also makes sense for Ludwig to leave, and she can be actually a sprint option. So the problem for Canyon SRAM was they would have the following situation in classics or stage races. They'd have Nuvia Doma with either Neve Bradbury or Elise Shabby.
Yep.
Sometimes even with a numerical advantage over Demi Vollering or Elise Longo-Borghini. The problem is neither of them can sprint. And so, like, really at all. And so they just couldn't really win. That happened definitely in Suez. Whereas with Ludwig, if you pair her with Nivea Doma, now you have someone who really has a decent sprint, particularly uphill, very, very good 30-second kick.
It's crazy to say because a few years ago, at the start of this podcast in 2020, we were talking about Udrup Ludwig as being the one without the sprint. So that's something she really worked on in the last 4 years. So that's a strength now compared to the average GC rider. But we've spoken about these 4 riders: Ludwig, Brown, Cavalli, Verhulst. Incoming transfers. Sorry, but we don't have to joke around about it. Like, will the incoming transfers replace the outgoing transfers? I'm sorry, but one name on the incoming transfers replaces the outgoing transfers. If you sign Demi Vollering, then you can let anyone leave in the team. You've got the best GC rider in the world on paper, right?
Yeah, best rider in the world. Like, it's the most valuable rider in the world because she can win. She's a Tour de France favorite. Like, if she has normal preparation, like, the difference between Pogačar and Vingegaard, say, for the favoritism for the Tour next year is much, much smaller than Vollering and then whoever else is next. So, if you have a good preparation with a good support and team and plan for Vollering next year, if she has the level of the Tourmalet 2 years ago, she should just win the Tour de France. So, and that's not the only race she can win. She can win every one week race she goes to. She can win Liège with good support. She can win Strada, you name it. So
Flanders, maybe. Like, not ideal. She's not the favorite for that race. I'd say Kopecky is over her, but she can compete for the victory. She's one of the not necessarily outsiders. She's close to the favorites. So there's so many races in which Vollering can win, even time trials, based on what we've seen in the last year. So this is such an addition, and that brings me to the question at least. How does FDJ Suez get Demi Vollering? And that's a question that I feel like to answer properly, you'd need like inside information for, because like we know that Demi Vollering has specialized as a bike brand that is also connected to her, which is or was the bike brand of SD Works. We've heard rumors, and I'm not sure if it has been confirmed, that Specialized would be coming with Demi Vollering to FDJ Suez for next season. What does that do when it comes to SD Works? Do we know if they ride on Specialized next season?
I think they still will. I'm not really, but there's not been any team announcements or team days yet. But I think they still will, but yeah, FDJ Suez will as well. But I think the reason FDJ Suez got Demi Vollering was that, from what I understand, they'd already signed Shabby, Lebu, Wollaston, and that was going to be their GC team. They're going to have Lebu and Muzic as the 2 GC leaders, and Wollaston as a sprinter. And then Demi Vollering's negotiations with SD Works broke down, and then I think Specialized was obviously like, would you like Demi Vollering? And would you like to ride on Specialized? And then FDJ Suez said, that sounds very good. Thank you very much.
But isn't that a crazy concept? That the bike brand or Demi Vollering, the combination of that party, because negotiations with SD Works don't necessarily look too bright. Imagine if Colnago and Pogačar suddenly went to I don't know, let's find a similar, let's say Soudal Quickstep or something. No, that's not the ideal team.
Less like a
Groupama FDJ.
What's a mid-table team?
Decathlon Age Desert 2024.
Yeah, Decathlon. Decathlon's a good one.
Let's say Pogačar and Colnago go to Decathlon AG2R and like Colnago says, do you want to have Tadej Pogačar? That is an out there scenario that is completely out of reality. And to think that it would happen in this situation, I can't wrap my head around that. It's like, Demi Vollering must really want to leave.
And no other team Like, yeah, it was like, and I guess the answer is if she's tied with the bike brand, it's the same problem with Remco.
Yeah.
You'd say, well, why didn't Little Trek then be like, well, let's swap Longbourgini for Vollering?
Yeah.
They can't go to specialized bikes.
UAE.
Visma can't go spec. UAE can't go spec because they're tied to Colnago and Cervelo.
Yeah.
And then so you're going down the teams. Canyon SRAM, clues in the name. So then they just picked the first team that could change bike brands.
Then you hear about these stories. I don't know how much of this is correct information or not, but I hear stories within the women's peloton that FDJ Suez basically has to pay a very limited amount, if not almost nothing, for Vollering being part of that team because of this being the scenario, which that is crazy to me. If Specialized pays the majority of her salary, if that is true, then I'm sorry, but if you're the manager of the FDJ Suez, if you're Delcourt, you're just sitting there like, wow, a miracle just fell into my lap.
And the other teams then that might be able to change. So let's say DSM. They're not like they don't own Scott like UAE own Colnago, but they're then tied to the men's team contract with Scott, and because they have an associated men's team, they got to rip up the men's contract to get Vollering for the women's team. Same goes for Movistar with Canyon. So then FDJ Suez, they're not actually related to Groupama FDJ. They share a sponsor, but they're not. They're different organizations, so they have the flexibility to do what they want. And yeah, right time, right place. They got to be happy with getting Demi Vollering.
Mate, it's crazy.
Yep. So also her bringing the same bike brand and support, I think that's a big deal in that there's just no equipment change. So you're not worried about her being on different equipment, getting used to that, as well as being in a new environment. I do
want to mention how big this is for the sport of cycling as well, because we were stuck in this timeline where SD Works had Kopecky, Vollering, Wibbes, like that whole combination was so dominant that looking towards the upcoming years, having Vollering within a different team than that, so much hype, so much enthusiasm towards future races. And it's not because I dislike SD Works, it's because I dislike dominance. And I don't like seasons where the same team wins every single race, which, to be honest, 2 years ago was not a good cycling season in women's cycling. 2024 was a good women's cycling season.
I got some stats for you, Benji.
I'm terrified.
So there was, I think, 84 World Tour wins for women's World Tour teams this year.
Yeah.
And 45 of them were won by SD Works, so over half.
And the rest
of I don't have all the stats. I just have this year. But you
had one job. Come on.
Yeah. On the minor calendar, they didn't win as much, but in World Tour, they won over half the races.
Crazy.
And the rest of the World Tour teams were only able to win 39, with Little Trek having the next. So 45 for SD Works, 7 for Little Trek. So that is, we talk about Pogacar's dominance and in the men's, but actually SD Works' dominance is much bigger, was much bigger this year in World Tour cycling compared to the other teams than in the men's cycling.
Yep.
Like really, really like outside. So that's a great point, Benji. This is excellent for the sport.
Yeah.
Because we just have now. Maybe it would have been better to split Kopecky and Wiebes because they're like against each other in the same races, but I think we'll see some pretty good battles between Kopecky and Vollering too in the future. But she's joined by an all-star cast. She has Elise Shabby coming from Canyon, SRAM. She's one of the best versatile climbers in the world, 4th in Liège, as I mentioned in that group with Niewiadoma.
Yeah.
She is, just a really, really good all-round rider and climber. She was 4th in Burgos. She, not the best GC rider. She's like probably where she is now. She's 31, but really like they probably signed her originally as an Ardennes rider and climbing support for the 2 French riders. But yeah, she's great. Like that is the rider that Vollering needs. She's needed someone like this, a mountain domestique.
How would you rate her climbing compared to Reusser, which Vollering had to miss in 2024?
Oh no, Shabby way better climber.
Okay. Because it's been so long since we've seen Reusser at the side of Vollering because of the injuries and so forth that she's had throughout 2024 that, I don't know, I'm also looking forward to see Reusser again properly a full season next year. But that is beside the point. Shabby joining is definitely a solid addition to the team for that mountain team, but also for the versatile races like Hill Classics. But I want to talk about Juliette Labou as well, because that's one of the cooks in the kitchen, I'd argue, because we've spoken about Evita Music being one of the main figures within 2024 within this team, being very consistent, stepping up when it comes to GC when necessary, when Uttrup Ludwig wasn't able to perform due to her injury at the start of the season. And then Vollering comes in after Labou was already signed. Labou coming in already impacts the leadership within the team. Sure, you can say, okay, that takes the spot of Uttrup Ludwig within the two leadership strategy, whatever you see there. Now it's two French riders who also have their own ambitions to maybe both be the first French rider in GC at the Tour de France Femme. But then you have the big one that came in, Demi Vollering, afterwards, which it then makes me question, okay, did Labou know when she signed? No, she didn't, most likely. That Demi Vollering was potentially coming to the team. That story hadn't occurred yet. But how much do you think? We're going into the next topics already of the podcast, but Vollering, Music, and Labou. How do you share leadership throughout a year with three leaders within a team? Is there enough races to do so? Especially when two of the three are French riders that want to perform at the Tour de France Femme, I would guess. And Demi Vollering wants to win the Tour de France Femme.
Yeah, well, in the Tour de France, it's clear that you go for Vollering, and that's just too bad for Music and Labou. They can get in line, but maybe you can you race open and you race in a different way. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe tactically, if you have three of the best climbers in a group of six, does it make sense just to pull for Vollering, or can you do something different? Perhaps because Vollering was isolated a lot of the time in groups of 7, groups of 10. Yep. She was on her own almost in some mountain stages this year, and Labou and Shabby almost, but definitely Labou and Music, they are much better, like all-around GC riders and climbers than, say, Niamh Fisher-Black. Like, they are in a group of 5 or 6, they will be there. Yep. And then, yeah, you can pull with them if the situation merits it and Demi feels good, or on Madeleine, play numbers. But to your point, Benji, I mean, you got a lot of races. You got Romandy, Swiss, Burgos, Scandinavia, Tour de France, Giro, Itzulia, Vuelta. There's many, many one-week stage races to share around.
I somewhat agree, and I see that point, but if you're Labou and you come from DSM Firmenich, where you're full-time leader in every single race that you go when it comes to GC...
Yeah, but what does she win?
And then, I agree with you, then you go to FDJ Suez. Is there this effect? For example, in the classics, we sometimes see that numerical advantage that can lead to a lot of other riders winning that might not be the big gun in the team, for example. So, for example, in the classic, okay, Reusser won against Wevelgem at SD Works. She was not the top dog of that team in those classics. Is that also the case when it comes to GC riders, though? Because I often feel that when it comes to GC riders, it's more likely that it's a top dog of the three that's going to win.
Sepp Kuss won La Vuelta.
Fair. But
it's Bredevold won at Zulia. Reusser won Swiss. Labou will win more races because Demi lets her than she would have won on DSM. Yeah. And Demi's not greedy. She's not greedy. And for the A goals, she I hope she should be.
Yeah.
Not Worlds.
She should be more greedy for...
She should be more greedy for the main goals, but she is not greedy when it comes to letting Labou attack in Tour de Suisse and maybe win GC, because she's done it before on SD Works. So I think Labou's gonna get more wins now. She's got 5 wins. She hasn't won since 2022, excluding French Natty Champs. And so that's, I'd say, good for her. Music is the same. Music is the same. So yeah, that's a Shabby, Labou, Music, Vollering is ridiculous. It's so stacked. They can control mountain stages. It's just, it's crazy. Actually, like, it's really, really crazy. Another rider they've signed, Ali Wollaston, Kiwi sprinter. I don't know if she had injuries or something, because she won her first race day at TDU, and then what happened? Then she had 4 months off, came back, won 2 stages at Catalunya. That was ahead of Vos, pretty impressive. Then had another 3 months off, maybe for Olympics. She's on the track.
Yes.
And
bronze medal in Omni.
Okay. And then at Simac, she had 3 top 10s. She's a good young sprinter, 23 years old. They needed someone to sprint on the flat. They just had to get someone. And so she fits that role, and I think is a good signing.
I think it's a perfect signing. Like, when I looked at the results of 2024, even if Vollering is not in the team, one of the things they missed is a sprinter. And since Clara Copponi is gone, they don't really have that. And yes, some of them can maybe get top 5s at sprints, but I see no victors in terms of sprinters in their team outside of now Ali Wollaston. Is she going to win a Tour de France Femme sprint stage? She's not the favorite for that. Wiebes and Cole and multiple other sprinters I'd rate above her, but I would say that her season and her last 2 years, she's definitely a tier 2 sprinter in the world, no?
No. What's a tier 1 sprinter?
Ooh, for me, tier 1 is Wiebes and Cole. Maybe my tier 2 is too long.
Tier 2 for me is like Consoni, Piccolic, Balsamo, and then tier 3 would be even Vos, maybe tier 2.
I've got Wollaston on Piccolic's level.
Yeah, fair enough. She won a World Tour race this year. Yeah, but I would Consoni maybe and Balsamo better. Moving to the youngsters, a rider who you might not know, but was a huge talent and still is. She just won a Tour de l'Avenir stage. I don't know if she said she lost the love of cycling the last couple of years. 20 years old, Eglantine Rayer. Now, this rider was the best climber in the juniors, I'm pretty sure. She won Tour de Gévaudan Occitanie, and then that was at 17 years old, second in World Champs in Australia on a flat course behind Zoe Backstedt, and she's a climber. And then the most impressive result is she, at 17 years old, racing for France Juniors at Alps Grisivaudan Classic, which is like a proper mountaintop finish. She finished on the same time as Evita Muzic, who's 5 years older than her. Raya was 17 at the time. Muzic was I don't know, 23 or something. It's in 2022, and Muzic couldn't drop her. So, but then it just didn't work out the last couple of years at DSM. She comes back to a French environment, and I think there's a huge amount of talent there. They will know that. She even came 5th in Tour de Suisse as an 18-year-old on the last stage. So I also don't know how they were able to sign her, frankly, and why another team did.
It's interesting because, yes, we mentioned that Grisivaudan Classic, and I agree, Muzic couldn't drop her, but I feel like, is it me or has Muzic underperformed on some of those one-day classics in France where suddenly a youngster can somehow follow her or beat her? Because then we have a Canadian rider getting 4th in that race as well in 2022. I'm not saying she's not talented at all. She is very talented. But I then compare to the rider she's beating instead of Muzic in those races. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Oh, no, it's not an all-star cast by any means, but still 17.
Yeah, very talented.
And then Célia Géry, she's the best French rider in the juniors. There's the big 3 in the juniors. Well, maybe Kat Ferguson's the main one, but there's the other 2 talented ones were Kladnova and Célia Géry. And you just have to look at her junior results. You can see that. She won Tour of Flanders juniors, best French rider in national champs and TT, 5th in the World Champs road race. Last year, she was also very good. She is, born 4th January, though, so very, old for her category, as old as possible for her category, so maybe that helped at the start of 2024. In terms of development, but they got the best French junior, so
And isn't she also European CX rider or something? U23
oh,
CX
yeah,
champion?
cyclocross.
U23? Which I feel like, I know you're about to make like a diss towards cyclocross. I can see your eyes like, trying to say something. But I think that seeing all these youngsters, more and more we see youngsters, especially on the women's side, I feel as well, also be part of the cyclocross world, especially in France as well, by the way, mountain bike or cyclocross. That must help when it comes to technique, when it comes to bike handling going into your career, compared to, let's be honest, some of the current women's world tour peloton, or riders that started later when it comes to cycling, and therefore maybe became a cyclist at 24, 25, maybe sometimes 27, 28. And then they don't have that CX background or youth development background that gives that technique and that bike handling that a Jerry, for example, will have. So I think that's actually very valuable for a youngster like her.
Yeah, if you look at Kat Ferguson and Imogen Wolf,
yeah,
they're probably better descenders than most of the elite riders already in the rain. Also, because they're from the north, so they're used to riding in shit weather. So yeah, not everybody is like Cedrin Carvalho. But yeah, Jerry Benji, she is the world champion junior cyclocross.
Oh, okay.
So that's pretty good. So yeah, they got a huge talent in her. Not bad. And also, yeah, they're getting also the best French riders, so that's also got to be good for the sponsors as well. That's as good a transfer window as any team could have imagined, and you can't. There's no negatives like, oh, I don't know why they signed them. It all makes sense, so credits to them. The program of Demi Vollering, Benji.
Yes.
I would say Sanremo.
It's weird, huh? Thinking about Sanremo now in the...
Strada's first.
Yes.
Let me get the calendar up.
I'm not used to seeing Sanremo in the women's calendar yet.
Yeah,
I'll need like a month to build it in.
I would send Muzic and Lebu. Yeah, they can go win in the desert. Send on. Oh, there's plenty of races for Muzic and Lebu. They can do 2 down under or UAE if they want.
Wollaston's definitely going Santos down under, right?
Yeah, of course. And probably they'll send Raya and Jerry. Oh, Jerry might be doing CX.
Yep.
CX should not be allowed during TDU.
TDU should not be allowed during CX, what the Belgians say.
Maybe.
They should just throw mud on Wollonga Hill, and then Wout van Aert and Mathieu van der Poel will show up. It's as simple as that.
The only weakness I see in this team, the only knock on it that I see, is that they also will have to rely. Demi's their main realistic winner in classics too.
Yep.
And so they're going to rely on her. Yeah, like they shouldn't, but she shouldn't do Gent-Wevelgem. She should do she shouldn't do Brugge de Panne. She won't. She probably shouldn't do Roubaix so she can prepare for the Ardennes. But the problem is, they do have Bottini for Roubaix, but the problem is their classics team is not so good.
For me, I would think about, I would throw Wollaston in Gent-Wevelgem and Brugge de Panne in the hope that it becomes a sprint in those races. I would throw the likes of Amber Kraki in Roubaix and not have Vollering there. Vollering, RVV, I'm fine with that. MSR, I think that is necessary because it's the first time MSR. Strade Bianche, I think that's necessary. Then you've got the whole Spanish circuit, all the one-week races in Spain that she might want to do. Tour de France Femme is the most important race for her. That's clear. That's the one she needs to work towards. And if the Vuelta and Burgos and Itzulia and all those races really fit in that calendar building up to the Vuelta and the Tour de France, then that's fine. For me, the Giro d'Italia women is where the other GC riders come in with Labou and Evita Music. And also, those two riders, I'd also throw them in the Tour de France Femme because they're also super domestiques for Vollering. But does the team have enough when it comes to flat support, for example, for Vollering? Do you still see that in the team?
Yeah, they got really good riders for that. Amber Krach, Vittoria Guazzini is a mega strong rider. Leah Courniers all around. Los Arges is very good.
Yes.
She's a powerhouse, so I think they're sorted. I think they're well-rounded. And I think they can put together the best possible team in the tour, or not just uphill. Like Quazzini's really good. So,
So
yeah,
I don't
you're
think
right.
it's. Go ahead.
Well, like you're right that the Giro seems like a natural place to give Lebu and Shabby, Lebu and Muzic opportunity to go for themselves while maybe Vollering prepares at altitude or something.
Yep, I think so too. And Shabby's gonna be such an important character both in the stage races and in those hill classics. Obviously, I forgot to mention hill classics is an obvious one for Vollering as well. So the way I see your schedule is basically Strade, MSR, hill classics, including RVV, and then eventually go to the Vuelta Spanish circuit and then to the France Femme. And we're trying to win worlds in Rwanda. That's the list.
So how many World Tour races are they going to win in 2025? Vollering won 15 herself in 2024. I'm going to go with 21 World Tour races.
I'm also leaning towards a number than that, like that, to be honest. Like, we're talking about 4
Wollaston
women's World Tour
won.
victories. Right?
Well, yeah, I was just thinking of Demi like 15 again, and then Wollaston a couple. Lebu won.
Yeah, I'm leaning towards higher even. But then again, do we underrate how difficult it is to work together for the first year with all new teammates? Because this is basically a new top of a team, right? Lebu plus Shabby plus
at least she
Vollering.
has teammates. But she's got teammates.
That's true.
How could it be worse?
That's true.
It can't be worse.
The support. That's true. It's also not like a sprint train. So in a sprint train, you need to be like perfectly...
You need chemistry, yeah.
Chemistry, to figure out, okay, that rider is going to know where to go next, etc. You need to trust each other fully. When it comes to a mountain climb, whatever, you can say, get to the fucking front.
Lebu smash!
Yeah.
So, and then if she doesn't hear you for 10 seconds and then does it a bit later, it's not like the moment's passed. You can just, you're going to be on Col de la Madeleine for an hour.
That's a fact. So I don't have too much trouble with that either. I'm going for 23 victories in Women's World Tour. Right. So I think they're gonna eat a lot from the plate of SD Works. And are we saying that? Are we underrating the newcomers in the sport, at least the returnees in the sport, where Van der Breggen is showing up, where Ferrand Provo is showing up? Like, I don't know what to expect from those two factors at all. So in my head, I'm kind of like half ignoring those factors until I see what they can actually do on the bike,
Yeah, but that's why we're both not going crazy and saying that they're going to be like at SD Works level winning 30 plus World Tour races.
Yeah.
Like, I think even 21 is already, like, they won 3 this year, right?
Yeah.
So
I think I might be overrating it with 23.
Yeah, it's high. It's a high amount. That's assuming Demi's at a like current dominant level. Maybe that's not true, as you said. My hot take is that Juliette Lebu wins the Tour. That's my hot take.
I was the Juliette Lebu fan here.
I really see it because she's quite aggressive. She's got a good TT, and I can see a situation. What if she goes on Jouplan final stage, and Demi's sitting there with Demi? Shabby is sitting there in the wheel of the others, and Demi's in. She can, like, the one will chase.
Ooh. I like
it won't
the idea.
happen, but that's why it's a hot take.
I am saying, like, even Lebu winning Giro d'Italia women would be a hot take.
Yeah.
So her winning the Tour de France definitely is. Oh, what can I say here that is a hot take in this team? I actually don't know, to be honest. I just want to see this team succeed for some reason, because I would like to see Vollering with like a team that actually supports her, and as a consequence, I like to see her succeed in a certain way, because in the last year, I feel like that's been taken away from her from SD Works in some shape or form, and that felt unjust as a cycling viewer, as a watcher of the sport. So, but when it comes to hot takes, I don't know, man. Like, I don't fucking know. Is the hot
Anyway,
take that they'll have 3 riders in the top 7 of the Tour de France Femme? Not really.
No, because the other 2 were already in there.
Yeah.
Anyway, you don't have to do one if you don't feel it. I'm really keen to see. It's great for parity in women's cycling that the best GC rider is going across to another team. So I'm really excited to see how this team goes next year.
Is it a hot take that they win LBL, but it's not voting? Or do I need to say specifically who's going to win it?
You have to say Shabby. Yeah, you have to say Shabby.
It's not going to... Actually, it could be Shabby.
Yeah,
I'm going with Shabby. I'm actually okay with that.
4th or 5th this year.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. I'll go with that. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks for listening. As always, that was our FDJ Suez preview, and we'll see you in the next one. Ciao.